Still single at your age? That's pathetic. Michelle thought about how she met her ex-husband at a fancy Chinese restaurant. Despite his sarcastic remarks, they exchanged words. Then her sister, who had eloped, showed up. Her ex-husband announced he was marrying her sister soon, and Michelle laughed at him mockingly. "Oh, didn't I tell you?" Feeling on top of the world, Michelle made a confession. "My name is Michelle Smith. I'm a 39-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband Mike for about 2 years. We met at work where I was an office clerk. I liked Mike's lively and cheerful demeanor and made the first move. His easygoing and manly charisma was very appealing. It was love at first sight. When I told him how I felt, he reciprocated, and we got married in 6 months. I thought he was kind and pleasant while we were dating. However, after marriage, he changed completely. It became routine for him to shower me with abusive words, and sometimes he treated me like I wasn't even human. Married life became tough and painful, and every day felt gloomy. I gradually started to fear him. Mike is a light truck delivery driver. I wish he were a long-haul driver so he'd be away more often, getting me some breathing space. His job involves delivering many loads to various places in a single day, so he usually comes home in the evening. Early in our marriage, I expressed my desire to work. I think I want to contribute to our finances. If both of us work, we can save more and it'll be useful if we have kids. The moment I said that, Mike slammed his beer glass onto the table and started berating me. "You saying my earnings aren't enough, huh?" I never intended to imply that, but he was drunk and overreacted. He seemed ready to hurl the glass at me at any moment, so I hurriedly tried to placate him. No, I just don't want to be a burden to you, that's all. You're probably looking down on me inside. Who do you think allows us to live this comfortably? Even if you work, you wouldn't earn much. Don't act all high and mighty. I realized after marrying him that Mike has extreme paranoia and wild mood swings. I never saw this side of him when we dated, so it was unexpected. Could I really spend the rest of my life with someone like this? The thought made my anxiety worse. Another incident added to my worries. I'm truly happy Michelle married into our family. Mike rarely brought girlfriends home, so I was worried he'd never marry, my mother-in-law said during a Thanksgiving gathering at their house. My in-laws are genuinely kind people who care a lot about me. When we got married, they were over the moon, as if they had gained a daughter. I got along well with my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law was also very kind to me. One of the few bright spots in my difficult marriage was dining out with my in-laws. However, during a family reunion, Mike began mocking me in front of everyone. It started when a male relative made fun of his wife's belly, drawing laughter from the crowd. His wife playfully pinched his belly, making it a funny husband and wife routine that lifted the mood. Then my husband decided to poke fun at me. "What are you talking about, uncle? Michelle looks so childlike, hardly womanly. Your wife looks way more elegant and mature." I was left speechless by his unexpected comment. The male relative said, "Come on, cut it out," but everyone else found it hilarious. The only ones who looked concerned were my in-laws. "Michelle, go to the kitchen and help my wife with dinner preparations," my father-in-law said, seeing my distress. Grateful, I rushed to the kitchen with my mother-in-law. Tears streamed down my face from the overwhelming incident, but my mother-in-law comforted me like she was my own mother. Meanwhile, my father-in-law stepped in and chastised everyone, insisting they apologize to me. They all did, except for my heavily intoxicated husband, who remained defiant. Why should a husband apologize to his wife? That's why Dad always gets ridiculed by Mom. Can't you have some dignity? This led to a father-son argument, and the gathering ended early. From then on, the relationship between my husband and his father deteriorated. My visits to my husband's family home became infrequent. Life after that was a living nightmare. I lost my only source of joy and began to feel weak and lost day by day. Even daily chores felt monumental. Whenever my husband remembered that day, he'd shout at me, "You must have said something unnecessary to them. Thanks to you, I was humiliated in front of everyone. What are you going to do about it?" Fearing his temper, I became constantly on edge. Living on the 10th floor of an apartment building, I often thought if jumping would offer an escape from my misery. When we're mentally drained, making rational decisions becomes a challenge, and I felt exactly that way. During one of these despairing moments, my sister visited. "You haven't been in touch recently." I got worried. "Michelle, you look awful," my older sister, Catherine, said. She's 3 years older than me and worked nights in her previous job. She was the most sought after, probably because she looked much younger than her age. It was rare for her to drop by unannounced, but she was in the neighborhood checking on the renovations of her new club and decided to stop by. Did something happen with your husband? She asked. My sister and I were the best of buddies growing up. When I got married, nobody was happier than Catherine. She cried tears of joy and celebrated with me like no other. I just want to disappear, I said, tears welling up in my eyes as I conveyed the painful situation I was in. Every day felt like I was being emotionally abused by my husband. It felt like living in a prison, a life full of pain and despair. There were moments I thought of ending it all. Overwhelmed by it all, Catherine showed visible anger and said she was going to go yell at my husband right then and there. But just imagining what could happen to me if she did made me even more scared, tears streaming down my face. I pleaded with Catherine not to confront him. Seeing my reaction, Catherine calmed down and started thinking of what we could do. After a moment of silence, something seemed to click in her mind. With a bright expression, she whispered a plan into my ear. Hearing her plan, I exclaimed in surprise and asked if she was out of her mind. You think that'll actually work? Who do you think I am? Catherine said, confidence oozing from her every pore. I trusted Catherine to pull it off, but the risks if her plan was discovered made me anxious. Don't you want to get out of this and be free? She asked. Seeing me unable to decide, Catherine turned serious and told me it was ultimately up to my courage. Hearing that, I made up my mind and agreed to her plan. From that day on, Catherine came over nearly every day. People who are emotionally abusive tend to act all high and mighty in public. If I'm around, he won't be able to pull anything on you, Michelle, she said. She visited me frequently over the next few months until her new shop was ready. At first, my husband seemed unsure of Catherine's frequent visits, but he seemed to enjoy the drinks they shared every evening and gradually warmed up to her. Catherine made sure Mike drank enough to get really drunk and stayed with him until he fell asleep. You're always joining me for drinks, so feel free to stay the night anytime. Mike, now quite fond of Catherine, began to show her affection he never showed me, even trying to stop her from leaving. But Catherine always declined his offer with a polite smile, assuring him she'd visit again soon. She'd come back the next day. For Mike, time with Catherine seemed like a dream. He was so enchanted by her that he seemed to have forgotten all about me. But then, as Catherine's shop was about to have its grand reopening, an incident occurred. I'm divorcing you, Mike declared out of the blue. I was shocked by his words and demanded an explanation. I've found someone I care about more than you. I want to be happy with her. I want you to leave, he said. I refused to accept his selfish reasoning. I didn't want to accept his decision to divorce. However, Mike seemed to have expected this reaction and coldly mentioned hiring a lawyer. A few days later, we had a meeting with a lawyer. Even there, Mike made unbelievable accusations. You just want money, right? Do you want the property? I'll give you whatever you ask for. Let's end this. In front of everyone, Mike made it clear he no longer had feelings for me. He seemed to want to end our marriage as quickly as possible. Mike didn't mind paying a hefty sum to make the divorce happen. The lawyer, probably feeling uncomfortable, showed me the average amounts for such cases. You really don't have much affection for me, do you? I said. I could easily tell who Mike was thinking of and who he wanted to be with. I lowered my head, realizing resisting was futile, and accepted the divorce terms. Fine, but I demand a fair division of the property. Mike probably thought he could just earn it back. He was oblivious and elated at the thought of a smooth divorce, but I let out a serious smirk. Without him catching on, the divorce proceedings began. However, Mike's parents strongly opposed the divorce. When we went to inform them, they shouted at Mike and defended me. What on earth are you thinking? Michelle has been so dedicated to this family, and you're talking about divorce and someone else. You can't be serious. His mother, T, tried to convince Mike, while his father, visibly angry, scolded him. But Mike seemed indifferent to their words and dismissively responded, "It doesn't matter if you accept it or not. She's already agreed to it. It's because you pushed her into a corner with lawyers." Mike's parents had always cherished me like their own child, and the thought of separation was painful to them. I could feel their desperate pleas and felt guilty for betraying them. I loved them too and would have loved to live as their daughter if things had turned out differently with Mike. Regret filled my heart and I couldn't hold back the tears. You're so damn annoying. I'm done with her. I'm going to marry someone I truly care about and be happy. Stop nagging me. Mike shouted back at his parents, now completely enraged by their words. They couldn't accept Mike's decision, and he was disowned right then and there. So Mike left his parents' home and apparently eloped with his love interest. Our divorce was finalized. Half a year later, I was dining at an upscale Chinese restaurant with my parents, enjoying a meal when I heard someone call my name. It was Mike. I had gone outside to make a call and ran into him in the hallway. Long time no see. Didn't think you were still around, I said. His condescending tone hadn't changed. My face must have shown my disgust. What's with that face? If you've got something to say, spit it out, he said, looking down at me with cold eyes. He wasn't shouting because we were in public, but he still tried to belittle me. I held back my anger, turned my face away, and acted all high and mighty. When you can't even stand up for yourself, did you manage to find a boyfriend after our split? Mike mocked. I had only seen this side of him after our marriage and regretted not realizing it sooner. It doesn't concern you anymore, I said. Without even confirming if I was in a relationship, Mike sneered, really, still single. Pretty pathetic for an old hag. He looked at me with an expression that screamed he felt he had won at life even more so than before our split. I was about to give him a piece of my mind when my sister Catherine walked into the restaurant. "Oh, Michelle, I didn't expect to see you here," she called out to both of us. "Catherine, perfect timing. I was just about to share some news with Michelle here," Mike said with a smug look, snaking an arm around Catherine and drawing her close. I just stood there, not letting his actions fluster me. My gaze was icy cold as I watched the scene unfold. "I thought I'd tell her first that we're going to get married," Mike bragged, pulling Catherine even closer. I had always suspected that his feelings for Catherine were the real reason he wanted a divorce. But looking at them now with emotionless eyes, Mike still didn't realize the gravity of the situation. He shot me a smug grin. "Sorry, I guess I'm going to be living the dream with her. But hey, you're not too bad looking. Maybe with a bit of effort." "Oh, never mind. I'm sorry, but I can't marry you." Gently shaking off Mike's arm, Catherine dropped the bombshell with a smile. His face turned to shock, unable to comprehend her words. "The truth is, I never had any feelings for you." "Wait, what? What are you saying?" Mike stammered. "Didn't she tell you?" I said, my voice dripping with mock confusion. I savored every moment of his confusion. "What do you mean, didn't tell me?" Mike was bewildered. The whole thing was a setup. Catherine and I had planned this to make sure we got a divorce. As I walked over to join my sister, we exchanged amused smiles. Even witnessing this, Mike couldn't understand what was going on. His words came out jumbled. Was this all just a play? "Thanks to Catherine here, I got quite a bit of alimony from you. I'm really grateful for that," I said. Rejecting his initial proposal for divorce was part of a plan to get as much property as possible. It was all Catherine's idea. I was eager to divorce but didn't want to raise suspicion, which is why I played along. "No way, Catherine would never say that." Mike struggled to come to terms with the truth, babbling on and refusing to believe my words. I tilted my head in confusion and asked, "Why do you say that? Why would Catherine say something like that? She said she's going to marry me." Mike was taken aback, but Catherine responded calmly, "Well, if you took my sales pitch so seriously, I was just doing my job entertaining a client," she said, her brows furrowed as she feigned concern. She touched her cheek with an exaggeratedly innocent gesture and sighed softly. "I'd only entertained you as a client. I never had any feelings for you. I'm sorry if I gave you the wrong impression." "So you've been fooling me this whole time?" Mike asked, stunned. "For the past 6 months, you were just a valuable customer," Catherine said mockingly with a derisive laugh. "You always tried to one-up everyone. It was kind of cute, actually." Mike, completely fooled by her performance, showed his anger and raised his voice, despite being inside a shop. "All those words about wanting to be with me, asking me to divorce Michelle, they were all lies. Who in their right mind would want to be with someone like you, an emotionally abusive husband?" "What did you just say?" Mike's face reddened with rage as he breathed heavily in agitation, cautiously watching for any signs of further trouble. I kept an eye on the exchange, worried that my ex-husband might become physically aggressive. Discreetly, I reached for my phone. It had been difficult to keep up the charade for 6 months, but thankfully, my ex was simple-minded. In reality, my sister was already married when I was with my ex. Her husband works as a bodyguard. To trap my ex-husband, my sister convinced him that she was also going to get a divorce. For someone like my ex, who had never been popular, it was flattering to have someone pursuing him so intensely. He enjoyed the feeling of superiority, thinking he could take someone away from someone else. My ex fell right into my sister's trap. "About you taking so long to get that divorce, that was obviously a lie. As you can see, my marriage is perfectly fine," my sister said with a radiant smile, linking arms with my brother-in-law, who walked over with a smile. "Pleasure to meet you," he said. "Seems like my wife has been causing you some trouble." My ex looked dumbfounded, his face a mix of anger and sadness. "It's a shame, isn't it? Wasting half a year only to end up being kicked out of your own home. It's so pitiful I can't even look, my sister taunted. As my ex seemed dazed from shock and tried to lash out at me, reaching for my collar, my brother-in-law swiftly stepped in and handled him easily. What do you know about what I've gone through this past year chasing after her? Do you understand? My ex shouted, his anger boiling over. I don't and I don't want to, my brother-in-law replied. You play with people's lives and then act all high and mighty. Do you understand how much pain you've caused? Facing my ex's aggression, my voice broke with anger and tears as I finally let out all the frustrations I've been holding back. The way you ridiculed me in front of our family, your attitude toward your in-laws, all your actions during our marriage. I will never forgive you. You're going to get a taste of hell. I then turned around and called out, please come out. Emerging from behind me were not just my ex's parents, but also my own parents and even my husband's relatives. Now, everyone can see your true colors and just how pathetic you really are, I said, ignoring my ex's confused and desperate gaze. I played a voice recording from my sister capturing my ex-husband's disgusting comments. Are you really going to break up with Michelle? He asked Catherine in a sickly sweet tone. Of course not. I don't need someone useless who can only do house chores. I prefer someone mature and attractive like you. The sleazy nature of his voice made my skin crawl, but I let it play in front of everyone. His disdain for me was clear. Don't you love Michelle? Catherine asked in the recording. Of course not. She's nothing more than a maid to me. I only married her to tick off a box. No emotional connection, he replied, making the crowd visibly repulsed. As the recording continued, he described me as merely a servant, someone he could discard at will. His in-laws were furious, and everyone present voiced their condemnation. You're a disgrace to this family. How could you say such things about your wife? You're pathetic, they said, their anger palpable. With contempt in their eyes, I told him coldly, nobody's on your side anymore. Stay away from her family. I never want to see your face again. Having made my point, I stopped the recording and asked my brother-in-law to throw them out. My ex tried to retaliate but was swiftly ejected. Afterward, the store was locked up, but he continued to cause a scene outside, demanding it be reopened. Eventually, he was reported and taken to the police station. After my sister and I uncovered my husband's misdeeds, we celebrated by high-fiving each other. It felt like we had finally gotten our revenge. We went to a restaurant to order food and celebrate. Since the restaurant was reserved just for us, we could relax and enjoy ourselves without any interruptions. My sister, Catherine, had organized everything, and I was really grateful for her support. It was nice to share a meal with her after such a long time. After our little celebration, it seemed like my ex-husband was almost stalking Catherine. We had to report him to the police again. My brother-in-law Mike stepped in and gave him a taste of his own medicine, which made my ex-husband too scared to come around anymore. Now, 13 years later, I'm working on the accounting at Catherine's store. I still keep in touch with my ex-in-laws and occasionally have meals with them. I'm deeply thankful to Catherine for helping me through everything, and I plan to repay her kindness someday. For now, I'm focused on working hard with Catherine.